Hello everybody, welcome back to another light novel review. Today I am talking about volume number 7 in Reki Kawahara's light novel series, Accel World. Now, volume number 6 ended on a cliffhanger with Haru and Ardur Maiden stuck inside the castle at the center of the accelerated world. This one doesn't initially pick up in that story. In fact, in the beginning, we deal with about a backstory about other characters from the accelerated world, which then eventually leads us to Haruyuki's situation. And this sort of early part of the book, I would say probably about the first half or so, giving us this viewpoint of characters from the earlier year of the origin of the accelerated world, plus now what Haru discovers in this castle in the center of the accelerated world. It gives us a really more detailed view of just what has happened in this space and gives us that backstory, gives us an idea of just how the armor of catastrophe came about. We also have a component of the story dealing with the investigation into the sort of these false cursed armors that were introduced in the last volume, that they seem to be a lot like the armor of catastrophe, but they exude that same sort of dark energy and everything else. So this book ends on a cliffhanger again. So Reki Kawahara is trying to tell obviously a bigger story here. This sort of, volume 6, starting with volume 6, now this volume, and then certainly leading into volume 7, I kind of get the impression that we're talking a lot about the history of the accelerated world, even though the vast majority of the book is still about Haruyuki and his friends in this modern moment. Some of the stuff that's revealed in this book sort of makes you start realizing that there's been certain elements in the accelerated world that we thought that were new, but have actually been there and operating for a lot longer. And I don't really want to get much more into detail about it because that will be spoiler city, but you will definitely get what I mean, especially because part of that reveal happens in the first quarter, first quarter of the book. Now, I've got to say, this is now volume number 7 of this series, and a couple of weeks ago, I reviewed volume number 7 of Kawahara's light novel series, Sword Art Online. Now, I won't say that this one is my favorite volume of Accel World, the way that I said that I thought volume 7 was my favorite so far of Sword Art. But I'm going to say this, though. As we get into these later volumes, to me, you can feel and see how Reki Kawahara is maturing as a writer. And I don't mean to make it sound that I'm some kind of authority and that I know better about writing than he does. Obviously, he's doing a lot more and making a lot more money than I am. But as a reader, in terms of the pacing of the books, in terms of the complexity of the plots, even in terms of the emotional impact, like the backstory, the first part of this book, there were moments in it that I had a very real emotional reaction to. And I can't say that always happens in some of the earlier volumes of Kawahara's books. But I think what also it teaches me is why I like Accel World better than Sword Art Online. In Sword Art Volume 7, of course, the godlike OP character Kirito is almost completely absent from the story, and instead we focus on Asuna and on Yuki. And these are two characters that are closer to being real people. I mean, as real as anyone is in a light novel, but they are closer to being real people than you see in Kirito, definitely. They have flaws, and they have challenges, and they have sort of bit of emotional scars and stuff that they're dealing with. And in Accel World, the whole story is about that. In fact, they've made quite a thing about saying that the only people that can actually enter into the accelerated world are these kids who have these emotional scars. In fact, you can take it to another step and almost say that in some ways Accel World, in perhaps even the way that Sword Art Online, the very first volume, people being locked in a true game of death, while we can consider these be clever, just plot devices, at the same time, it almost feels to me like it's Kawahara's statement on too much technology too fast is only going to result in bad stuff, or in the potential of people being left behind that we don't even notice. So in Accel World, for instance, we do have these kids that, from all appearances, are high achievers. They're getting great marks, they're good in sports, except for Haruyuki, of course. But, the vast majority of these characters are kids that most people would view as being somewhat model citizens. But because their child rearing has been done mostly through technology, they bear these deep emotional scars that actually are what allow them to be able to launch the Brain Burst program and inform the format that their avatar takes. In the case of Haruyuki, it's kind of interesting. With Haruyuki, I mean, he's the first character who can fly. And at this point now in the story, because we've had all these different volumes and we've had the different storylines and everything else, Haruyuki, you can see it's his idea he wants to escape, that he wants to fly to something pure like the sky. And that's why his avatar is the way it is. And as these volumes continue and we get more of these backstories and we get to know these characters better, I really do. I feel that at this point, Kawahara is starting to hit a real stride. The books are keeping me really engaged, even though, like I said, this is now part 2 of at least a 3-part arc, if not more, I don't know, but at least this is now book 2 of at least a 3-book arc, and I am still very, very interested in what's going on. I'm interested in the characters. I'm interested in what's going to happen to them, how they're going to overcome these things. I'm interested in the mysteries that are presented in this story, and there's new mysteries presented in this volume. And the cliffhanger that this leaves on is just, well, I mean, given what's happened in the last 2 volumes, it's a great cliffhanger as far as I'm concerned. The last line is just left me dying to pick up the next volume. I don't know if anybody else will totally feel the same. I have to admit, I'm a bit of a sucker for the whole deep backstory, deep histories, legendary figures, and all this kind of stuff. So having this series really plug into that kind of stuff, but in more of a modern gaming type of perspective, it really is a series that hits a lot of good points with me that I really, really enjoy. So overall, this volume number 7, I would say, is definitely, this arc itself is turning out to be one of my favorite arcs of Accel World so far. I really enjoy the deeper backstory of the accelerated world. I do enjoy these characters who are flawed, who are trying to find relationships with each other that they have never had with family before. And even though I will say the series can somewhat tend towards melodrama, at the same time, it's that kind of melodrama that, as a fan of anime, a longtime fan of anime, it makes sense to me. Like, I can't hate on it because it's that melodrama that you see a lot, like the screaming, passionate kind of like, I will do this for you. Like, I mean, if you hate that kind of thing, I don't really know why you're watching anime or reading light novels, because it's a thing. So, but I would be remiss if I did not at least mention that there is a little bit of melodrama that's slightly over the top, particularly I'd say towards the end, but nonetheless, a really good volume. Definitely this arc, one of the best, I think, of Accel World. Kawahara, the more books that he seems to write, the better his writing seems to get, particularly on Sword Art and this series. So I really am looking forward to seeing what happens in volume number 8. So those are my thoughts on volume number 7 of Kawahara's light novel series, Accel World. I'm going to be back next week with my review of volume number 2 of Overlord. Now, volume number 1 of this series, even though I thought I was just in for another, guy stuck in a video game kind of story, volume 1 really, really surprised me. And I really enjoyed the different sort of take on the, quote, hero figure that book presented. So I'm really looking forward to checking out this volume because, as I said, volume 1 went places that I wasn't expecting and I very much enjoyed. So that's going to be my review for next week. I hope you'll join me for it. If you're new to the channel, don't forget to subscribe. I've got links above my head, plus in the description down below. You can check out also my old light novel reviews, my manga reviews, and I don't just read books, I like to rate them too. You can check out those links as well. Again, guys, thanks so much for watching the video. I look forward to seeing you in the next one. Till then, bye-bye for now.